Good morning, everybody. Now, yesterday was another terrible day for the UK as violence continues on the streets, and that violence is being stoked up by the Starmer regime, which is taking a completely one sided view as to what is happening. So, people are on the streets to protest about the rise in violent crime from migrant communities, which is clearly going on and is a result of decades of mass rapid immigration, which has been imposed on ordinary working people in towns and cities around the country by governments and people around governments and the media class who don't have to share their resources and their time and their space and their money with the people that they're bringing into the country and dumping in mostly poor working class towns in the north of England. But now, of course, that's spreading everywhere to every town, every city, every village in the UK. But the violence that we've seen is on both sides. Now, I completely understand people going out to protest peacefully and wanting to start a peaceful movement against government policy. And that is our right, that is legitimate. What isn't legitimate is when people start acting violently and smashing up shops and looting and so on. Within that, however, the police tactics antagonize the crowd. And you can see the difference in policing. There's clear two-tier policing happening in the UK, even though Starmer yesterday denied it. That's misinformation. You can see in protests where there are white working class people mainly going out to protest against government policy, the police are lining up, going in hard, they're going in with dogs, they're going in with horses, they're riot shields and riot helmets on, kettling the crowds, antagonizing them. And then there are people who are agitators who stir things up, accelerate things, and then the poor patsies in the middle who get excited and then throw a brick or something or hit a policeman when they're charging at you, they get drawn, put before the courts and so on. But when we saw yesterday in Birmingham, two incredibly disturbing incidents, the police were nowhere to be seen. So there was one area where I think many of you have seen the video. There's a whole mob of Muslim Defense League people, let's call them that. I don't want to tar all Muslims with the same brush because there are lots of Muslims, I know many, who are in this country because they want to escape from hardcore Islamic regimes. You've got people from Iran, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, who are lovely people who love this country and who came to this country to work hard, to start a business, to bring up their families, because they want to be here, because they don't want to be in Iran, for example, under an Islamic regime. And those Muslims are lovely. I know some of them. But there are also Muslims who've come to this country for the opposite reason, because they hate this country or because they want to transform this country into a Muslim caliphate, an Islamic caliphate with Sharia law. They want to conquer this country and turn it into something different and subjugate this country under that system. And there are many here who are doing it for that reason. So there's a dichotomy there within the Muslim community. But when I'm talking about what happened in Birmingham, I'm talking about the second type of Muslim in this country, those who are here because they despise what this country is and has been and want to change it into a state where there is Islamic domination. And they seem to have formed something recently. This thing has emerged called the Muslim Defense League. And yesterday in Birmingham, they were out and took control of a key junction in one part of the city. And they were essentially putting up roadblocks to anyone who came in and who was white, and chasing them out of the area. We even saw a Sky News TV camera crew get harassed by Muslim Defense League operatives, soldiers, whatever you like to call them, who interrupted their broadcast. And then Sky News even admitted they slashed the tyres of their vehicle and then chased them for a few miles up the road. And they felt that they were in danger, but they tried to minimize it on the news. I mean, how stupid do these people have to be? I mean, how much do these people have to see and take before they actually admit what is going on in this country? That there's a very, very dangerous and growing mob of this doesn't tar all Muslims, but the type of Muslim who's in this country to subjugate this country, and they're supported by the Starmer regime. So how much do these news journalists have to see before they admit that this is what's going on and stop supporting them? But more importantly, they are enabled and supported by the Starmer regime, and they feel now that they can come out of the closet, the stone, wherever that they were hiding under, and actually present themselves to the world and say, yeah, here we are the Muslim Defense League, and we are going to set up wherever we are, in Birmingham, in Bolton. You've seen gangs, marauding gangs walking the streets, nearly kicking off violence with working class people there, indigenous white working class people in Bolton. We've seen this. They feel now that they can come out, and they feel that they are supported by the government. And obviously this is happening because of two-tier policing. Because when there was this mob of Muslim Defense League people out in Birmingham, the police were nowhere to be seen. Well, there's one point where a single police car drives in to have a look, and they decide, it seems that they decided there's nothing they can do. They drive round the roundabout and drive off and do absolutely nothing to stop what is going on there, with this mob out doing what they do, and taking control of the streets, if you like, and making the streets unsafe for white people to enter that area. Similarly, in Birmingham again, in another area of Birmingham yesterday, we saw a gang of Muslim Defense League people attack a single white person in a pub, a lone man in a pub, presumably because of the colour of his skin, and attack him, jump into the pub, beat him up, beat him to the floor, and then the video that's been taken stopped. Obviously, I think that maybe the person inside the pub who was recording probably felt frightened themselves and needed to leave. And where were the police there? Absolutely nowhere to be seen. Where's the condemnation from the Starmer regime? Absolutely nowhere to be seen. So they continue with two-tier policing, two-tier media, two-tier government, two-tier justice that we have in this country. And the thing is, you couldn't be more inflammatory than the Starmer regime has been. I mean, Yvette Cooper said yesterday that, as I said, the Fabian WEF young global leader who's now in the position of Home Secretary, who promised an extra £29.4 million to mosques to protect themselves, on top of 117 million that was promised to them earlier in the year when Rishi Sunak was still Prime Minister. But what is this money going for when they say it is to protect mosques, to protect the Muslim community? Now, I'm all for protecting everybody and keeping the streets safe for everybody. No one should be unsafe in this country, whether they're Muslim, Christian, obviously, white, brown, black. Everybody should be safe in this country, but then we shouldn't have mass rapid immigration that leads to groups of people in the country making it unsafe for other groups of people. But this, of course, is what Labour supports, as do the fake Conservatives, the Lib Dems and the Greens. They're all together on that. But, you know, this money that has been promised to protect mosques, I wonder if it is going straight into the pockets of whatever organisation is in place for this emerging group that's now called the Muslim Defense League, supported by the Starmer regime, which is a very, very big threat to safety and security of the majority of the population in this country. Now, finally, I'd say one thing that I'm still looking into here, because I see a lot of comments around suggesting that there's now a UN army in the country, that the people coming across the channel in dinghies are actually UN soldiers who were there to subjugate the country, to enable some kind of civil war in the country. And Keir Starmer mentioned in a speech, I think yesterday or the day before, that he's got a standing army ready now. He said a standing army of police officers, and so I don't know if that actually refers to what people are talking about on social media. Now, I'm interested in what people are saying there. I don't know if that's true or if it's not, if it's conjecture, if it's real, if it's just people reading into things what isn't there, or it may be true though. There's certainly, you look at what's happening and you think, well, maybe this is something that is being planned. Maybe that there are hundreds of thousands of people here to make a new standing army that has been built up in order to implement the policies of this Starmer regime now that it's come into power in the UK. But I don't know yet. I've heard things, people's talk of this bubbling around for a year or so, but just in the last day, there's a lot more discussion of whether there is a UN army being built up and in place in the UK, ready to be activated. So it's still something I'm looking into. And, if you got any thoughts and comments on that, is this just nonsense or is it actually real? Is there any actual evidence for this rather than just conjecture? I would be very interested to hear what people say about this, because I'm trying to figure it out myself still. Anyway, certainly we need great wisdom in this country in order to steer away from a civil war, because of the favoritism of the regime towards one group of people over and above the indigenous population of the country. And I don't want the country to be burned down, but I can see that they're continually winding people up and getting people riled up. And I'm not surprised that people are getting wound up, because that's what this government is doing. And the media and certain agents and operatives are doing that as well. But what I would say to everyone, is protest peacefully against government policy, but don't get drawn into being violent. If you see the police come with lines of police, walk away. Just walk away from it. There's no point in getting involved in confrontation with the police, even though they deliberately try to wind people up. Walk away from them. Don't get involved in confrontations. But we do need to protest peacefully, because what this government is doing is absolutely abhorrent. And they got into power on the strength of just 9 million votes, and a lot of people deciding not to vote this time, so that's let them in. But everything that's happening at the moment is the fault of the Starmer regime, and blame lies at their door. And I will not stop speaking against the terrible statements and policies of the government that we have until it's gone. Thanks for listening, everybody. And these are dark days, but I still pray that God will bless you all.